let me say thank you very much for the invitation to be here. I'm really very excited, very honored. And for me, it's like a homecoming. When I stopped by and saw my colleagues, lecturers, robed, said if I knew, if I remembered, probably I could have grabbed my own gown and joined them in procession. And it's really a great pleasure. It's a homecoming to the university. And next gratitude is that I'm grateful and we must appreciate the federal government of Nigeria. And I understand this was done in the year 2000 when my SY boss, President Obasanjo, was president of Nigeria, that this university was renamed Michael Okpara University of Agriculture. And we're very grateful that they remember. We shall never forget. I'm also grateful to the leadership of this university for the thoughtfulness, the presence of mind to remember that this university was named after someone. And there must be a reason. And we must not let us never forget. You are here in Abia. The professor who gave the background, also like auto say me inu. Agamatolo ni inu. Udele. Oyoro onwu ofu ayiyo. Oyoro onwu biko. Ị na-egbukwa ndị mmadụ. Na-egbu ụfọdụ ofu okenye. Ga na-elotela ụmụaka n'ude na-abụ ọkwa n'olili. So, I think you can interpret to her. Yeah. So what we are doing today is really coming back, and that's why I see now Haji Agamba, Ugwabia, and so on and so forth, to remind us that we once had a glorious past. And indeed, the labors of our heroes shall never be what? In vain. So I want to thank you. The theme of the assigned to me by the organizers is leadership, agriculture, and national growth. But permit me, Vice Chancellor, I have rephrased it a little bit differently. Okay? I will wait for him to finish. Yeah, okay. I have tried to rephrase it a little bit, the title of what I'm going to speak into, and that is Our Future in Our Past. Our future in our past. Reinventing Dr. M.I. OKPARA'S policy entrepreneurship as a model for national renaissance. That is where I have tried to reframe what I'm going to be speaking about in the next few minutes. You see, Nigeria is a country whose past seems to be more glorious than its present. Unfortunately. Which for decades seems to be developing backwards. When you compare Nigeria to its comparator countries, historically speaking, be it Indonesia, who were at par, comparable in every multi-ethnic, multi-religious country as Nigeria in the 1970s, and we parted ways. Look at Malaysia, that was said, people, have this fable, I don't know if it is true, that Malaysia actually came to eastern region, this part of the world, and took palm seedlings, probably when M.I. OKPARA was premier. And today, Malaysia exports more from palm oil than we export from crude oil. And Nigeria has become a net importer of palm produce. Is it not a country developing backwards? If you go South Korea and so on, We have had generations that have been unable to even maintain the basics of the things that we inherited from our heroes past. In the 1960s and 70s, I even understand in the late 50s, at least in the early 70s, I saw quite a bit of this. We had most of our cities were planned, clean and green. Planned, clean and green. Electricity supply was guaranteed 24 hours for the limited places where electricity was available. Pipe-borne water was taken for granted in most cities. Postal services worked. Even when I was in secondary school, you could post a letter on a Monday and it will get to its destination and you'll get a reply by Friday. Today, not anymore. Pipe-borne water in our cities is like fairy tale. Planned cities, clean cities, it's just like fairy tale. Postal, and then we had street addresses were known. Street addresses, if you sent a letter, you could get straight to the street address. Today, if you want to describe to somebody how to come to your place, you don't just mention the address. You have to tell him or her, when you get that place, you see where there is a black gate and there is a kiosk there. You go a little bit, you turn right. Then count the third house by the left, the one that has green, that's the house. That's how we now have addresses, isn't it? Before, Eastern region was growing at an average of 9 to 10% year on year, making it, as was reported, the fastest growing region in the entire world. Quality of education was very high. Those who graduated, who passed through primary school, could write you in fluent English, write letters, do everything. Primary 6. Today, you know, I say, hey. Check is there, they got even university, where it is estimated that at least 60% of our graduates, you can complete the rest of it. So where we have a country that seems to be wide on with growing backwards. And it may then well be that the foundation to the future will start with a regeneration of the past. And this is where it brings me to what one of the finest economists that has passed through the shores of this country, Pius Okibo, Dr. Okibo, blessed memory, described as operanomics. That operanomics will get to be recommended as a case study. And I want to admit here that I am a lifetime apostle of Dr. M.I. Opara, who was Premier of Eastern Region between 1959 and 1966. I am therefore very proud to be here today. My dear brothers and sisters, in 2050, it is estimated that about 400 million Nigerians will inhabit, 400 million people will inhabit this place we call our country, Nigeria. And these people will need food, they will need shelter, they will need schools, they will need health care, they will need transportation, they will need jobs. They will have to grapple with the challenges of climate change, urbanization, digitization, and all the consequent rescaling and upscaling of existing skills and lifestyle. They will have to grapple with crime, migration, and so on and so forth. Just imagine today you have probably about estimated 225 million. Imagine doubling this population in about 27 years to come. And here you have the national income growing at a rate that is per capita income growth is growing at a rate that is far lower than the population growth rate, meaning that the average person is getting poorer. And unless we have per capita income outstripping the rate at which population grows, we can only be getting poorer and poorer per person. And therefore, if you're having this with a dysfunctional federal structure, then Nigeria, so far, the way we have gone so far, has shown that we have been ill prepared for this, for the opportunities and the threats of the future. And therefore, every day we sing our national anthem, admonishing ourselves that the labors of our heroes past shall never be in vain. And therefore, my dear friends, the best way to give meaning and content to this is to reinvent the ideals and the exemplary leadership exhibited by the noble leaders past as a guide to our present and our future. Eastern region was growing at 9–10% year in, year out. It was the miracle of the time. It was the miracle of the time. And for Nigeria to get back on track, to be able to claim the 21st century, and by the way, that's the title of one of the books I co-authored, Can Africa Claim the 21st Century? Africa cannot claim the 21st century without Nigeria. Nigeria is the most populous, the biggest black nation on earth, with all the potentials that there are. For Nigeria, for Africa to claim the 21st century, Nigeria must rise up as a giant to run. And for it to rise up to run, we must get back to the growth trajectories that M.I. OKPARA and his colleagues, as at that time, pioneered Nigeria. We need to be doing that 9–10% year-on-year growth path for this country. So, and then we'll ask ourselves, if Dr. Michael Ihonu-Kara OKPARA were to resurrect today, what were the nuggets of lessons that he will share with us in the light of the challenges ahead and where we are today and where we have come as a people that seem to have been developing backwards? We seem to be making progress where? Backwards. Our future might well lie in our past. What would he be saying to us? By the way, my closest personal encounter with Dr. M.I. was as an undergraduate. In 1983, we were student activists, pushing for the re-election of Shagari and Ekwueme, then of the National Party of Nigeria. And I remember in one of the rallies where M.I. Power was present, and he was speaking in the, I called it Umuahia dialect, but I was told it's Ohoho. And he was then referring to the then governor of Imo State, Mbakwe. He said, lenu nanya, nwa voto na abara nwa Ohoho mba. Nwa voto na abara nwa Ohoho mba. Ahushiela m anya. I don't forget that. So I started asking them, kedu onye nwa Ohoho na nwa avoto? Na Mbakwe is from Avoto and he himself from Ohoho. So nwa avoto na abara nwa Ohoho mba. Ahushiela m anya. And we were together then in National Party of Nigeria. Of course, those of us as student activists were leader of the Ekwueme movement that was coordinating the students' wing of the National Party of Nigeria in then ANAMBRA and Imo, the current Southeast, in that 83 presidential election. And so we were almost together in campaigns. And that's how close, so much I saw of him and admired so much. The M.I. Power, the man who brought pipe-borne water in those days, even as a child, to my village. And the force of the pipe-borne water was running with force. Yes, he said the chairman said even to his own village. But he was quite an animated fellow, I was told, about his own politics. You know, in those days, I understand NCNC was the dominant party and his own political party. But he also made sure that the issue of loyalty was very serious. He took it very seriously. He was a passionate fellow, but who demanded also loyalty. And then you had the provision for independent candidates. And there were many independent candidates that ran elections and won against the NCNC government. And MI will tell you, listen, this pipe-borne water I'm bringing, this pipe I'm sending to you, if you don't vote for NCNC, I will take back my pipe. And those who did not vote, he went and dug the pipe again and took back his pipe. But he rewarded loyalty as well. All the parts and nooks and crannies, and I will just say a few things, because, like I said, the day is far well spent in summary. If he were to resurrect today, what would he tell us? I will share among many things. There are just about 12 things we can share. But I will just talk about three. Three here and summarize. The first was that MI will tell us to be the change that we want to see. Live out by their personal example. Don't just make speeches. Don't just talk about them. Do them. And by their fruits, you do what? That is a major thing. And this crosses various aspects. These three areas that I will talk about. This central message. First, MI. Forgive me to just be referring to him MI, because that's the fun name. MI Power. MI Power. MI was a nationalist. Number two, he was a humanist with character who believed in selfless service and servant leadership. And number three, he was a policy entrepreneur. The three that I want to emphasize here. The other 9, we'll get to them, you'll get that much later. As a policy entrepreneur who saw the public government as a public entrepreneur to ensure creation of sustainable wealth, employment generation and poverty reduction, and to also ensure sustainable public finance. The first, as a nationalist. MI as a Zikist. Dr. Okpara was a quintessential Pan-Africanist who believed in Zik's Renaissance Africa and Nigeria as leader of the black race. Thereby, there can be no nation without nationalists. There can be no nation without nationalists. As Nigeria still grapples with the national question and in their need of a national conversation, the passion with which our founding fathers labored to forge a nation out of our disparate nationalities that make up the country still resonates. Our future may well lie in a rigorous interrogation of our past, and the life and times of M.I. Okpara point to shining beacons. Nationalism. You can't build a nation without a sense of what? Nationalism. If everybody is thinking in terms of his village and his clan and his ethnic group and tribe and tongue and so on and so forth, our first national anthem said, though tribe and tongue may differ, but in brotherhood we do what? We stand. If we don't believe, if everybody is expecting the country to that sooner or later is going to disappear or is going to crack, is going to, and everybody then trying to get as much as possible before, then you will never create a cohesive nation that can prosper on a sustainable basis. M.I. Okpara, that we've come to celebrate today, was a nationalist. And you will see a bit of this. I will illustrate when you come to specific things he did. The second one I want to illustrate is as a humanist with character and passion for selfless service. He was a humanist, so a human being first and foremost, empathy and so on. For M.I., the human being was for him the center, the beginning, and the end of development. He was uncompromising in his belief and conviction that the chief purpose of government was to protect the citizen, identify with the citizen, provide for the citizen, and have robust engagement with the citizen and better the life of the citizen. Human being was for him, human being and his progress was for him the object and subject of development. He strove to churn out policies and programs that were genuinely targeted at delivering the dividends of democracy. As I quote Okigbo here, what he said about him and so on and so forth, but I don't need to get onto this. But for us to make authentic progress, government at all levels should, like M.I. Okpara, put man or human being as the center of development. This you can write a whole book about. And related to the idea of human welfare as the epicenter of all developmental initiatives of Dr. Okpara was his insistence that the people themselves must participate visibly and practically in the process of governance. He was a reputed pragmatist. He believed firmly that the input of the people was essential to the success and sustenance of government policies. To actualize obtaining the buy-in of people in governance, he devised two practical strategies. The first was the inauguration of the Leaders of Thought Conference, and the second was Meet the People Tour by the Premier. Even till today, videos and so on still circulate about his Meet the People Tour. He was touring the industrial estates and markets, and when he visited Onisha, and so on and so forth. Now, the leaders of thought were selected from a broad spectrum of people from the component provinces of the region, including members of the academia, traditional and religious leaders, business people, women, and youth leaders. These leaders were mandated to interrogate government policies and suggest areas that required fine-tuning or abrogation. They were also empowered to generate ideas that will birth new policies and programs. The conference was held periodically and was a tremendous source of inspiration to the Premier himself, M.I. Okpara. The Meet the People Tour was Dr. Okpara's device to relate to the people and also confirm that government projects located in various parts of the region were actual and not paper tigers. On such occasions, the Premier will interact with the people from areas visited and encourage them to freely ventilate their views regarding the challenges they face. And he used such tours to reassure the people that government hears them and cares for them. He was a man, he governed through government of the people, for the people, and by the people. He epitomized that. On matters of character and integrity, M.I. was exemplary. His integrity was infectious. Are you hearing me? I want to ask you a question. You all come from villages. Just two questions. Just take your community. I don't know how many of your communities you have president generals, or what they call the community leaders, they call president generals. Do you have them in your own communities? Imagine in your community that the President General wants every person to pay a levy of 20,000 naira that they had a project to do. And after much protest, people grudgingly paid. And meanwhile, could you just give me a few more minutes? You're going to distract us. Once you start sharing that, then I will stop. Okay? Yeah, should have done that before we started, but I will soon wrap up, don't worry. You don't carry those two things together. After paying the 20,000, the man with a rickety car, and then he starts the project. After 2 months on commencement of the project, he comes home with a new car. What will be the reaction of the village? What did you say? They're going to, They're going to grab him to Kokuebo Sizutia. Okay, now let me rewind it. Let's put it the other way. Imagine that this is your Vice Chancellor, VC, that he was living in a high-density neighborhood somewhere, 3-bedroom flat in this 1, 2, 3, 4 somewhere, high-density neighborhood, and driving maybe an old Peugeot. And some rich people from his state put money together and sponsor him to become governor. And he serves as governor for 8 years, and then goes back and takes back his rickety 504 and goes back to the 3-bedroom flat. What would the people be thinking about him? Now, I am seeing some of your responses. Somebody here said, Amana Nisia Desriamma. Did you say he must be a fool or a Muslim? Oh, no need the mental health. I want you to think for 1 second the import of the two responses you just gave. On the one, if it's in your community and you contributed money and the PG behaves in a way that you think is inconsistent because it's the money that you contributed, you are going to interrogate him and question how he bought his car. Okay? But if he were to be governor and he serves 8 years and goes back to his rickety car, you would think of him as being in other words, you expect him as a public official to steal. That's what you've said. So, because that's what you are saying when you say if he does that, then he must be mad. Ndebai, I want you to know this. I want you to note this point that this experiment we just done, because that is at the heart of the problem of this society. It is at the heart of the problem that we have. When the ordinary people themselves expect the leadership, expect them to behave in a way that is inconsistent with the public good, to be seen to be sane. I thought somebody would have said that if you find such a person, we should celebrate him as a saint. Isn't it? Because all you are saying, those who gave that response, that he must be mad. I saw many hands were doing something like this, and they are doing like this. That they must be cuckoo. But let me tell you, the man who built the economy of Eastern region, who got the University of Nigeria going, who got the very many farm settlements going, who created unprecedented prosperity, the fastest growing regional economy anywhere in the world. That man left office after 7 years without a house of his own. And that's the man we have come to celebrate today. Oh, you are clapping. You didn't say he was cuckoo. There you go. That's the man we have come to celebrate today. When this man came back, I told you of my little encounter. When he came back from exile in 1982 or thereabout, it was a few friends who contributed money to build a house for him in the village. He had no house. But he created the unprecedented prosperity for all of us, gave us a future, laid the foundation for what we are today. That's the man we have come to celebrate, and I do not agree that there was something wrong with him. He was the hero, the man, the leader with character. Eh? He was a man with character. He was a man with character. And I want to say to you, dear friends, for this country to move forward, we must go back to those fundamental values. I have a thesis that the society died the day we stopped asking people, what do you do for a living? The day parents stopped asking their children, Nwam isi ebe bute. That's the day the society died. Nwam isi ebe megene bute. Your students, your theirs, your parents know how much they give you, they are struggling, and you come back home with iPhone 14. Huh? You get onto this and so on, and instead of and even the guy who is in school, who has no job and so on, starts fending for the parents. We're cascading this all over, and it goes to the leadership. Because it is the same people who will think of the guy in public service as being cuckoo for not stealing. They are the ones who will take over tomorrow. It tells you what they will do if they find themselves there. We have come to celebrate MI Opera. And that's why, part of the reason why I entitled this lecture, that our future is in our past. We must get back to the fundamentals, to the foundations of society. Because without getting that compass again right, I am afraid the future might seem bleak. Then the third illustration, and the final illustration I want to give, is MI, the policy entrepreneur. MI as a policy entrepreneur. Dr. M.I. Opara, under a competitive fiscal federalism, understood the centrality of creating a productive rather than a rentier consumption economy. And he built this around the tripod of agriculture, industry, and commerce. Of course, I don't want to, that's part of the other legs I will talk about is about his human capital and all of that, health and all of that, but I just want to talk about him as an entrepreneur. Just still crisscrossing the areas that you assigned to us to speak about. As a policy entrepreneur, he exploited every opportunity to create sustainable prosperity for the people of Eastern Nigeria and Nigeria. Various speakers have talked about agriculture. Agriculture. I won't waste much of the time. I have quite a lengthy note here about what he did in agriculture. But we know that he set up farm settlements in all the provinces. And I want to just illustrate this one to make a point. In all the provinces of Eastern region, then, the 6 provinces. That's Olona Farm Settlement in Omahia, that's your Haji in Owerri, that's Ibariam in Onitsha Province, that's the Boki Farm Settlement in Ogoja, there is also one farm settlement in Enugu Province, and Abak Farm Settlement in Anang Province. In addition, he had several others in terms of estates for oil palm, cocoa, cashew nuts, coconut, rubber, palm seedlings, etc., scattered on all vast parts of the whole region. It created enabling environment for private sector to also come, and this resulted in 1965, Abakaliki became the nation's rice headquarters. Milling and processing the rice came across from the nation, from Benue to Sokoto to Kano. My dear, the processed rice in Abakaliki was sold throughout Nigeria and in neighboring countries, Togo and Cameroon, Ghana, and so on. Poultry farming also flourished during his time. I don't need to get into all of those. But there was an incident that was said to have happened in 1964. A frustrated poultry farmer who couldn't sell his eggs came and created a scene at the government house in Enugu. And Dr. Okpara came out, listened to him, and gave the man a letter. And the outcome of that episode was the inauguration of a new policy to address the situation. He gave the directive for the creation of an agency known as Egg Marketing Organization, with a mandate to buy all the surplus eggs from poultry farmers in the region. He created rural development and was directed to build refrigerated rooms for egg storage in all the provinces of the region. And finally, the Ministry of Education was directed to serve egg twice in a week to all boarding school students in the region. I'm sure you are going to clap for this one. That's MI, dealing with the issue of surplus supply of eggs and to make sure that the poultry farmer didn't die. You know, and dear students, I say we're a country developing backwards. We're developing backwards. I know when I was in the university, I remember in those days, as undergraduates, some of the buildings, fantastic buildings were built by Hadel and Enik of Aheji Agamba, his engineering company, built several of those. And I remember at the University of Nigeria, when students were then protesting, or literally rioting, we were protesting that those who were passed, because then feeding was 50 kobo a meal. 50 kobo a meal. And if you had 10 naira 50, you bought the meal ticket for a week. And then part of the protest and demonstration was that over weekends we were told stories of how those in the past used to share a quarter of a chicken on Sundays. I can say, somebody is nodding here. The Vice Chancellor is nodding. There are those who saw the quarter of a chicken. You know, when we came, it now became maybe 1/8. And meanwhile, our hostels were cleaned. Every Friday they came and changed the beddings of our beds in the hostels and cleaned them and so on and so forth. And then students went on solidarity forever. That imagine getting, instead of a quarter of a chicken, is now 1/8. They are cheating us for 50 kobo. for 50 kobo. This country is one country whose past is more glorious than its present. I don't want to go much into all of this. Quite a lengthy thing about what this man did in the area of agriculture, but I just gave you just a few nuggets of that. One thing that it strikes out, which is akin to what we are doing in Anambra, we'll call it one state, one people, one agenda. One state, one people, one agenda. It is the same thing that MI did. Even though coming from the Igbo dominant group, he made sure that development of the eastern region was even, and that he saw the entire eastern region as a platform for his. I must tell you, at an emotional level, I am I feel very happy that eventually, when Abia State was created, that Umuahia, I think he, from his own, Hoho is quite at the neighborhood, periphery of Umuahia, isn't it? Yes, but they were all called Umuahia in those days. MI Opera did not take the entire developments of Eastern region to Umuahia. But I am happy that when Abia State was created, that Umuahia was made the capital. I'm sure wherever he is, it might be there. Because in today's Nigeria, this turn-by-turn thing is now a turn-by-turn leadership, where a leader comes, the first thing he thinks is myself, my family, my village, my community, my local government. Then we start asking, is there any other person? Eh? No. No. This is a university. I don't know if it happens here. If it happens, where even, I've talked about some places about what I call the villagization of university. That even state universities and so on and so forth, we now start talking in state universities, people start competing to be vice chancellor on the basis of it is our turn. The other senatorial zone produced the vice chancellor. It is now our turn to produce the vice chancellor. As you can see, some people are nodding here. Because this is a federal university, there is probably no senatorial zone allocation of office of vice chancellor. But we have degenerated. We have degenerated as a people. Aheji Agamba just gave the illustration that the former University College Ibadan, its first Nigerian vice chancellor, the first Nigerian vice chancellor that it had, happened to be Professor Kenneth Dike from Oka. They didn't begin to say this one is supposed to be a Yoruba man or supposed to be. We need to get back where universities become universal. Where your vice chancellor, your this thing could be an Indian, could be a German, could be whatever, and so on and so forth. Because in the end, the children, the interest of the children is to be taught by the best teacher ever, regardless of where the person comes from. This was the Michael OKPARA'S legacy. And for those of us in leadership, it is something that we must take back. OKPARA had Eastern region as his canvas. And he saw, if you saw the way he built industrial estates all around Eastern region, spreading them all evenly all across the entire provinces of Eastern region. He believed in one region, one people, one agenda. We're mainstreaming that, and I think it's a very fundamental lesson. We talk about what he left in agriculture, but I will tell you, his understanding of governance, being about people, even-handedness, merit and need of the people as the fulcrum of governance, is something that we need to be teaching to the current and prospective leaders. Now, And I will say to you, the palm plantations that he built and all the farm settlements that he built, dear friends, they remain relevant today. They remain relevant today. And that is why, for me, when I was running for office, I promised the people of Anambra, I talked about OKPARA'S. The economy of the eastern region grew on the banks of palm economy, dominantly. There were other contributors, but palm. When we discovered crude oil, we forgot the other oil, palm oil. And today, Nigeria is a net importer. It is estimated that if Nigeria had continued on the growth path that we were, by now, Nigeria will probably be, harnessing hundreds of billions of dollars from palm economy. And that's why I promised our people that we are going to go back to OKPARA'S. And on assumption of office, today, I have been in office for a year and a few months. We have already distributed, we're going back to that past. We've distributed about 1.1 million seedlings of improved hybrid palm, and we are going to be distributing a minimum of 1 million palm and coconut every year in, year out. And we will do that. Our target is to be able to regenerate and have about 5 to 7 million palm seedlings, palm and coconut, dovetailing the entire landscape of Anambra. That will turn the entire environment green. And the economics of it is that if a poor household gets 10 to 15 of such seedlings and nurtures them to fruition, they start fruiting, that poor household will be making a few millions per annum. And that takes them out of poverty. And our target is to take out 500,000 to 1 million people out of poverty in the next few years through the palm and coconut revolution. Through palm and coconut revolution. So, M.I. Okpara lives. He lives and will continue to live. The prospects of palm and coconut in the world economy, I've tried to scribble a few of them, but I don't need to elaborate on that. On industrialization, MI exhibited strong entrepreneurial spirit. They planned the Eastern regional economy and dovetailed it with industrial estates all over Eastern region. And if you look at the long list of what they built up, the steel plant in Emene, the Michelin tire factory in Port Harcourt, the gas factory in Emene, the aluminium factory in Port Harcourt, the Eastern Nigeria gas industry in Port Harcourt, asbestos cement Emene, Golden Guinea breweries in Umuahia here, Pepsi Cola, Onisha, Universal Insurance in Enugu, Hotel Presidential Enugu and Port Harcourt, and so on and so forth. You see here the entire landscape. Industrial clusters, industrial estates, and linking all of them together to create a buoyant and prosperous economy. MI understood that we need to build a livable and prosperous homeland. Get to Aba, just bringing it home. As a young person in my secondary school, I used to go on holidays to my uncle's place in Aba. And you get down to those streets, Ngwa, Fox Road, I remember Asa Road, this one, and it's quite a long time ago. Clifford and so on. They were then so clean, so very clean. You know, like, you go 1, 2, 3, there is a road. It were all planned. I also went to Fege in Onisha. Also, very well planned. With pipe-borne water. After the Civil War, at Niger Sam, Calago, that was the biggest industrial complex in the entire East Central State, the entire Southeast today. Pipe-borne water in my own primary school. You turn it. In every house, electricity, and so on. Today, I went to Onitsha. I went to Fege. I spent about 5 hours and I wept. We're now, even to desal, to clean the gutter, just gutter, clean gutter, carry the refuse. They now dump refuse until, in fact, the first day I went, they had come to a place, there was even a traffic light. They kept dumping refuse there until it was about the height of the traffic light. I had to climb up there to address them. And guess what? When they were down evacuating that, there was a corpse inside there that they had poured something on top of the place. People now build with impunity, even waterways, where you have water drawing to River Niger. They completely fill up the place. Somebody just goes, builds plaza along the waterway. So when it rains, people drown. No, it doesn't matter. Impunity has become the watchword. Imagine na ajo Chineke bia ibola eba onu, obo na ibola eba onu gosi him sign. Hara pozi waste our time here. Can you find the wrong with this COG? What is the problem? How are we the people going backwards? Everything we inherited, we have bastardized. Everything we inherited, we've bastardized. I'm sure if, you see, the good thing is that they will get ready and say, I'm going on holiday, going to London, going to America. When they go there, they go through, after every few blocks, you have a mighty park, green, that has been preserved that way forever. I'm sure if the Hyde Park in London were to be in Nigeria, maybe more than 50 years ago, they would have subdivided, I say, if we were on Malaysia, another in a site. I said, on my Anna, then a site, near west. They would have gone and, bully say, look at you, or lawyer afia. I must tell you, I applied for this job because I believe something in me tells me not the possible. We can make a beginning, and we can we can do something for ourselves. Because, like I said, our future is in our past. You look around, you see our founding fathers. They have done it before. They have done it. I saw it. But each day, everything that we saw growing up as kids, they are disappearing. And of course, you can't give what you don't have. You can't give what you don't have. So, we can talk all day about what he did, the MI power, what did they mean, what they did in agriculture, what they did in industrialization, what he did in the area of health, education, and so on and so forth. How selfless he was. I guess today, for me, the point for us of this lecture is not just to come and talk about MI. It's for each and every one of us today as you leave. Are you prepared to be the MI in your own little corner? Are you getting me? That's the whole import. Are you prepared to be the MI in your own little corner? Are you prepared to be thought as being crazy, being mad, while you are striving to get things done? And I must tell you, it is not an easy thing to get it done. For me, as a person, politically, I'm a neo-Zikist. Philosophically, in terms of the politics, I'm a neo-Zikist. In terms of being a Pan-Africanist, and my belief in the prospects of a united Nigeria as the greatest black nation on earth. On regional development, however, my own soludonomics, as some people call it, is an augmented OKPARA'S and Awoism. It's augmented, it's an augmented OKPARA'S with the Awolowo, that's for another day. Obafemi Awolowo, especially in the area of human capital. But in terms of the economics of it, that's what I said. It's not just to talk about it. I am walking the talk. To say, I believe that what this man did, we had an unfinished revolution in the area of palm and coconut, even cashew nut, and so on and so forth, which helps with the environment, which helps with clean and green environment, creates wealth. In the next few years, in the next 5, 6 years or thereabout, a new economy will emerge in Anambra in terms of processing plants, industries, and so on, that will be processing palm and coconut, among other things. It was an unfinished revolution by M.I. Okpara, and we must go back and rediscover him. We must resurrect him. So, the point I said to everybody, in public service, in private service, be the M.I. Okpara that you can be. I call on my colleagues as academics, that is where we are. We must all be that change that we want to see. Because in today's world, you know, a teacher is everything. In things fall apart, they told Okonkwo, Obierika also told Okonkwo, that child calls you father. As a lecturer, all of us, never forget, your job is not just to get to the classroom and be doing dy, dx, and you know, and no. The teacher must be everything because we call you father. It's a role model because the man that we have come to celebrate today was not just exemplary in terms of being able to do. He lived it out. Even when in the terms of the human, the way we see things, we might see him as being cuckoo. But finally, people come back and celebrate. My little experience, and that's part of what convinced me to apply for this job and to persist, that I want to try a few things. If for nothing, I mean, when they were reading citation, so they mentioned a few things. Thank you very much. You know, when you read these things and it gets so long, I'm wondering whether it's me or whatever. But when we were dealing with the banking consolidation, the day I announced that policy, I remember it was in an auditorium like this, that, you know, from a capital base of $15 million, we were raising it to $200 million. Most people in that hall there thought it was, I must be mad. And the newspaper headlines were screaming, impossible, 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 and so on and so forth. Of course, I received 19 written threats. Yesterday I was with the governor, my brother Ugwabia, and I was telling him I had to evacuate my family on exile because of the threats on me and my members of my family. My father was attacked and left us dead, and one eye gone. They left him lifeless. You know, you go and warn your son. He's trying to take away their bread. It can be dangerous, but MI did it successfully. Banking consolidation, when we finished. Today, I told Nigerians then that after the banking consolidation, you will no longer have these banks, the issue of, because before we came, Every day, one bank was either dead, people's deposits were either trapped here or there, and so on. And no bank in Nigeria could give you $500 million to build any industry and so on. And I told Nigerians that after this, the banking and financial system will never be the same again. And lucky enough, this year, this is 2023. By next year, 2024, it will be 20 years when that revolution began. And to the glory of God, no bank has failed, no depositor has lost his money, and the banking system and financial system in Nigeria will never be the same again. That is the import of this kind of change. If you do it, it's dangerous. People will tell you impossible. People will raise the daggers that are wet to assail you. They are going to kill you. They are going to do this. They are so on. But in the spirit of the man that we have come to celebrate today, he has demonstrated that at all odds, a new society is possible. And if Nigeria is going to move forward, the personal life examples of M.I. Okpara, not just what he did, but by personal examples, we must get back to that. Because in the end, our future lies more in our past. Thank you very much, and God bless you.